Republican of Wisconsin, a member of the Budget Committee, joining us to talk about issues relating to spending, government shutdowns, and other related issues. Senator, welcome.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you very much. Do you think a shutdown could be avoided at this point?
I sure hope so. I mean, I certainly don't want to play brinkmanship with the American economy, and there's really no reason for one. But Pedro, part of what Americans are seeing right now is just the utter dysfunction of this place. I come from the private sector, manufacturing. My background's in accounting, and it's hard to convey the dysfunction of Washington, D.C. And one thing I would like to point out to Americans is what they need to do is be watching this very carefully and make sure that they don't rely on the federal government to solve their problems, because the federal government was never intended, it's not designed, it's not capable of running the 23% of our economy that's in charge of now, much less the 39% that it's on a trajectory of managing in about 30 years. So I really hope Americans are watching this very carefully and start realizing what we need to do is start devolving power away from this very dysfunctional place, start bringing it back, really, which is our constitutional framework, was government close to the governed, where it does a whole lot better than it does in this alternate universe we call Washington, D.C.
Do you support the House bill currently as it stands?
Every Republican would like to see Obamacare repealed, defunded. There aren't a whole lot of Republicans that want to threaten any kind of shutdown. And so somehow we're going to have to, work through this process. I've never really understood the end game of this particular strategy. I've done a lot of strategic planning in my lifetime. It always starts with acknowledging, trying to ascertain what reality is. What's the situation, and unfortunately for Republicans and conservatives, the reality is that President Obama won re-election. Senator Harry Reid is in control of the Senate, and it's pretty hard to force Senator Harry Reid to pass a bill that defunds Obamacare and expect President Obama to sign it. So I think there are better strategies that we could try and employ. Certainly, I think it's incumbent on Republicans to show the American people what our ideas are for health care reform. But the other thing we need to start doing is we need to start painting the picture of what Obamacare is going to really look like once it's fully implemented. And I think what we're seeing right now is it's not going to be a very pretty picture. I think the best chance we have for preventing Obamacare from taking firm or permanent root, is the way I always like talking about it, is as this thing does get rolled out, I think Americans are going to be not particularly happy with what the results are. We're already seeing it. President Obama's big supporters, the unions, are demanding that this thing be changed because they're recognizing it's threatening the 40-hour work week. It's certainly not producing job growth, job creation. So, across the board, Obamacare, I think, is going to be a disaster for our healthcare system, for, let's face it, our federal budget, and for our freedoms.
What do you think about the strategy of your colleague, Senator Ted Cruz, then?
Well, again, I just don't see how it ends in success. I like to recognize reality. I like to set achievable goals. I don't see defunding Obamacare with Harry Reid in the Senate and President Obama in the White House is an achievable goal. I think a far more achievable goal just might be a one-year delay. I mean, let's face it, President Obama has implicitly acknowledged the fact that Obamacare is a train wreck. He has delayed a number of provisions by executive order, and quite honestly, Pedro, I'm not sure he has the legal authority to do those things. So I think we could probably work with our Democratic colleagues, potentially get them to delay it a year. This bill's not ready for prime time. So possibly, if we utilized our levers of power properly, we might convince them that it's in their best interest to delay this in a year. And then what we should really do is we should take the next year, prior to the 2014 election, have a very serious conversation about what we really need to do to fix our health care system, and run the 2014 election as a mandate, A, to finally repeal Obamacare, and B, to really institute the types of free market reforms, the types of reforms that actually give consumers choice, starts limiting the rate of growth in costs as opposed to expanding it, and produces a healthcare system that is better for most Americans.
Senator McConnell said he won't filibuster the CR. Other senators have said that as well. Are you in that camp?
Depends on how the whole thing's presented to us. It's very difficult to not allow a vote to proceed to final passage on a bill that defunds Obamacare. I mean, that's exactly what the defund crowd wanted, is a vote in the United States Senate to defund Obamacare. And if that's what we're going to be presented with, proceed to passage of that bill, I think it's going to be very difficult to try and prevent cloture from that standpoint.
Our guests joining us until 8:30 to talk about these issues. If you want to ask them questions, you can join them on the phone. It's It's 202-585-3880 for Democrats, 202-585-3881 for Republicans, 202-585-3882 for independents. If you want to send a tweet, you can do so at C-SPAN WJ and email us too at journal@cspan.org. The one-year delay, how would you make that work in the Senate then?
Well, the way I've always approached negotiations in businesses is you spend a lot of time on the front end, figure out what do you agree on. You know, and again, I think the House has had enough senators giving them advice, but if I were in control of the House, what I would be thinking about doing is let's put together a CR that funds probably the vast majority of the government, the things that we all agree on. Let's get that over to the Senate, and let's have the Senate pass the vast majority of funding for the federal government. If we want to have a little bit of a debate, a discussion, which I think we should have over Obamacare, whether it's a defunding, whether it's a one-year delay, whether it's how about rejection of the OPM ruling, giving Congress and their staff a little bit special treatment in those exchanges. We can do that potentially with a smaller amount of the federal budget that, quite honestly, we don't disagree necessarily on funding. But let's not talk about a massive shutdown of 1/3 of the government, which is really what the discretionary part of the whole CR is all about. It's Pedro, it's one thing most people don't understand. 2/3 of the federal government is already fully appropriated. It's mandatory spending. It is going to be spent regardless of what happens, whether we pass a CR or not. And quite honestly, even a bunch of that discretionary spending would also be spent automatically because it has to do with national security, or it's part of discretionary spending tied to mandatory funding. So, an awful lot of these debates about a government shutdown is really a debate about something that's far scarier than what would actually be the reality.
Here's Ashland, Virginia. First call for our guest. This is Regina, Independent Line. You're on with Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican from Wisconsin.
Good morning, Senator.
Morning.
My opinion actually changed of you just a few seconds ago. My major concern, being someone who was laid off, my husband and I, and taking such a significant cut in our finances and being offered health care just for myself is $482, and we have 3 children. So it's like we have to split the children up on different health care plans and things like that. And it's emotional for me because it's just, our government is just crumbling. That's what it seems like, and I just really hope you guys do something to help us. I know a few seconds ago, I'm sorry, you said that we shouldn't depend on our government, but we pay you guys. We pay you guys to protect us. We pay you guys to just do what we need you guys to do. And I really think that if we could get our hands out of everybody else, going back to like the UN stuff, helping these other countries, America needs to help America right now. And if there are more Republicans like you in the Senate, I think that we could get it done.
Well, Regina, first of all, I appreciate your comments. Let's I always talk about what do we all agree on. I really believe we all share the same goal. We want a prosperous America. I'm concerned about every American. We all want every American to have the opportunity to build a good life for themselves and their family. And we certainly have a wide diversity of opinions on how do you achieve that kind of prosperity. How do you provide those types of opportunities? And I guess what I'm asking people to take a look at is just the evidence of how Washington, D.C. has really not worked particularly well. It's not working well right now, and that's part of my message is let's take a look at how we can take control away from the federal government, take it back to the states, bring it back to our communities. I think that's probably a better approach, and that's what we're talking about in terms of real health care reform is how do we bring more consumer choice back to the patients? How do we get individuals more involved in the purchase of their own health care, as well as the payment of it? How do you create that structure so that you actually allow the free market competitive system to control costs rather than have Washington, D.C. start rationing care to control costs?
John from Miami, Florida, Democrats line. John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're on. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, Senator, I wonder if you could answer this question for me. I'm real curious. You keep putting Obamacare down when there's a president who's trying to help all the poor people and the hardworking people. You put Obamacare down when it is the law. It was passed throughout the law. It is the law. And yet the Republicans are trying to kill this wonderful thing that Obama is trying to do for us. And another thing, Senator, can you tell me in detail what kind of insurance you have and who pays for it if it's not the taxpayer?
Okay. Well, first of all, John, what we're seeing is that Obamacare was passed on a very partisan basis, and even President Obama's union backers are really taking a look at this law and going, there are a lot of problems with this bill. It's just not ready for prime time. It's not going to work as it was advertised. I mean, President Obama claimed if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. Well, that's not true. He said that when you pass Obamacare, the cost of a family premium would actually decline by $2,500 during his first term. It's actually up about $2,500 to $3,000. So there are an awful lot of broken promises, a lot of promises made on Obamacare, and they're just not being borne out. You know, John, we are a compassionate society. We truly are. You know, we want a strong social safety net. The problem is, how do you design that social safety net that's confined to the people that truly need it, where it doesn't creep into, the population of people that don't need it, take advantage of it, and in so doing bankrupt our nation? One of our problems, the thing that I'm really concerned about, is our national debt is almost $17 trillion. It exceeds the size of our economy. And if we hit a debt crisis, if interest rates spike, if we just go back, Pedro, to the 30-year average interest rate of 5.3% from 1970 to 1999, that would add more than $600 billion per year to our interest payment. That's what we spend on defense. It's actually more than we spend on Medicare. So, listen, it's not that I'm not